Well, we are 7:05, and I think all of our presenters are with us. So we should get started. And we are very grateful on behalf of the Immigrant and Refugee Support Group. I'm very grateful for all of you for joining us and spending some of your valuable time listening to this program. I'd like to begin by turning it over to Gordon Rankin, who I think will welcome us all.
Well, Don, you just took the first line of my talk. Friends, welcome everyone. We're really glad to have you here tonight. This is such an important conversation. On Sunday, I'm a day behind. I was speaking in Lancaster, and I was talking about the three core identity themes that we have as the United Church of Christ. Continuing testament, God is still speaking. We're a church of extravagant hospitality. No matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. And the final one, we believe that the church changes lives. We often speak of that as creating a just world for all. This conversation to me just wonderfully illustrates the last of these, that we are a church that changes lives. That's why I am just thrilled and delighted with this conversation. I don't think we talk enough about how we as people in the church change lives. And this one will really get down to it. So when folks from the Immigration and Refugee Support Group came to me in late August, early September and said, hey, we'd like to have a conversation about what we are up to. We first talked around annual meeting and I had to say that's all filled up, but let's do one a few weeks later because I think we'll get a good group together to have that conversation then. And seems like I was on the right track with that. So friends, let's open our ears and open our hearts to hear the Immigration and Refugee Support Group tell us about how we as Christ Church are changing lives. Back to you, Don.
Thank you, Gordon, and welcome once again. My name is Don Goodnow. I worship at First Parish Church in Dover, and I happen to chair the Immigrant and Refugee Support Group. The program this evening is about the plight of immigrants in New Hampshire, specifically in New Hampshire, and about what the New Hampshire Conference is doing to support those immigrants. And what it is doing is in part through the Immigrant and Refugee Support Group. This is a follow-up to a more brief presentation that we did at the New Hampshire Conference of the United Church of Christ annual meeting. We'll go a little bit deeper. We'll get more into the immigration system, more into the inhumaneness, even the cruelty of the system, and how it affects immigrants who come here simply seeking safety and freedom from war or civil strife, government oppression, starvation, and death in their countries of origin. I want to emphasize to start that our work is rooted in the scriptures, deeply rooted in scripture. I want to make a plug here for a document called Becoming an Immigrant Welcoming Congregation, which can be found on the United Church of Christ national website. And in that document, I found a link to biblical references to immigrants and refugees. To my surprise, the first reference mentioned is way back in Genesis, the third chapter of Genesis, because it goes into when Adam and Eve were forced out of the Garden of Eden. And then, of course, the Bible goes through, the Old Testament goes through the Israelites' flight from famine into Egypt. Moses says, for you were aliens in the land of Egypt in the book of Exodus. And that phrase is repeated in Leviticus and in Deuteronomy, I'm sorry. And then, of course, you get to the New Testament where love thy neighbor reigns. And the Gospel of Matthew, of course, tells the story of Mary and Joseph's flight from Egypt to protect their baby. In the time of Jesus, such a journey was perilous indeed, and that journey continues to be perilous. The decision to flee one's homeland and seek asylum in the United States is not made lightly. The mission of the Immigrant and Refugee Support Group is a special mission of the New Hampshire Conference because of the ICE detention facility located in Dover and staffed by Stratford County. And we'll hear a little bit more about that later. But the presence of that ICE detention site creates the need for support of some of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine. We will open with a poem by a man who was very accomplished in his own country. He fled. He was very accomplished and safe until he wasn't, when he fled for his life, and he now lives in New Hampshire. Second, we'll hear from two of our partners, friends from the American Friends Service Committee, Maggie Fogarty and Grace Kindecki. They'll tell us about our broken and cruel immigration system, a little bit of information about the detention center at Stratford County House of Corrections, and about the visitation project. Third, we'll talk about what our conference is doing to support asylum seekers that are caught in the immigration system. And we'll talk about the several ways that each of us individually or in our home churches can welcome or accompany or support these vulnerable neighbors. I'd like to point out here that we may reference or in fact hear from some asylum seekers, and we're not going to mention their names, both out of respect for their privacy and because their asylum cases may be pending, and we don't want to jeopardize those cases. We will have an opportunity for questions. You can go to the bottom of your screen and you'll see a reactions icon. And if you click on that, there's an opportunity to raise your hand, or you can make a comment, and we will recognize you, and you can participate actively in the program. With those introductions, I'm going to introduce my friend Becky Field, who is a member of the Immigrant and Refugee Support Group, who will introduce a recording. Becky.
Thanks, Don. As many of you know, for the last 12 years, I've been photographing New Hampshire's immigrant communities. And in 2018, fleeing death threats in his African country, Anthony, a pseudonym, legally asked for asylum at our southern border. He had been a professional in his country, as well as an artist and a poet. Under policies of our previous administration, he was immediately jailed by immigration authorities for 2 years and threatened with deportation on a regular basis, which would mean his certain death in his country. In 2020, with the outbreak of COVID, Anthony was released from jail in New Hampshire. A community group found him housing, and IRSG helped him with essential support. However, he was kept under house arrest and continued to be tracked with a GPS ankle monitor for an additional 3 years. In March 2021, Anthony and I met, and together we started a photography project documenting his experiences with the pain and humiliation of being confined and tracked. Since then, I have gained great admiration for this man and for his passion for family, faith, and freedom. We have also become very good friends, as he is a friend I know of many of you on this Zoom. The collection of my photographs from the exhibit of this project are currently presented at the University of New Hampshire's Diamond Library. The collection has been traveling around New England, and it shows 10 of my black and white photographs and Anthony's artwork printed on large canvas, 5 feet by 6 feet, and suspended in freestanding black frames. There's text attached to each one of the frames, which is an excerpt from Anthony's very powerful poetry. As I say, it's currently on display at the Diamond Library at the University of New Hampshire, and that will be available through January 2024 when it moves on to another location. My photographs and Antony's words and artwork illustrate a too common journey in detention, including the impacts on emotional and physical health. So now we are going to hear a recording of Antony reading one of his very powerful poetries.
A cry in the wilderness. Once upon a time, I had a beautiful home overflowing with laughter and love, a home and family I will call my own. My kids playing around like little doves, with God blessing us abundantly every day. And a good job I had to care for my family. My home was the best place for me to stay. Suddenly, I lost my family and home. I lost all. I lost my country and lost my little kingdom. The war killed my dreams. It made me crawl. Over the hills I ran. In bushes I ran to freedom. I ran in dangerous forests full of snakes. I ran to I know not where. I just ran to be safe. My body and bones aching as my heart breaks. Where am I? Around me I looked. Only trees I see. I am hungry, I am thirsty, and I am wearied. I eat insects, I eat mud just to be able to feed. I sleep in the rain and bushes with eyes blurry. At night I hear noises. They keep intensifying. What are these noises? At once I recognize them. They are voices. Voices of my children crying. I hear my kids asking, Daddy, where are you? Daddy, come and help us. Come and take us. I see all their faces. I see their teary eyes too. I wake up with tears in my eyes. Am I cursed? Oh my God, why is this happening to me? When will I see my wife and my kids again? My eyes were full of tears and I couldn't see. I remember my kids. I see their smiling faces, smiles that used to illuminate our home. They are all gone now, just like my shoelaces. Oh God, why should I wander and roam? I miss my home, I miss my wife, I miss my kids. Oh God, I am lonely. Oh God, I am going crazy. I raise my voice from the wilderness and plead, have mercy on me and rescue my family and me. I am tired. I do not know who I am anymore. I do not know if my family again I will see. My heart aches. My heart bleeds more and more. Will I live happily again someday with my family? I fear for my life. I fear for the lives of my family. I cry to you for help. I make this cry wearily.
Thank you to Antony for sharing his poem with us. And thank you for the introduction, Becky. I think we're moving on to Grace. If you'd please introduce yourself.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Grace Kandeke. I'm the program coordinator with the American Friends Service Committee, and I'm grateful to be here with you today. I'm sitting heavy hearing Anthony's words. I have the honor of knowing Anthony personally, and so if I sound heavy, it is because I am feeling that heaviness. But I'm always so grateful for him to being willing to share his story and his experiences with us. So with AFSC, we believe that migration is a fundamental human right because it is a natural human behavior. And in many ways, it is one of the things that makes us quintessentially human. We believe that our laws and policies should be created to make the ability for human beings to move both safe and supportive. But what we have as the reality is that we have an immigration system that acts more like a monstrous industrial machine littered with pitfalls and pit holes where people can fall into the traps. It is unforgiving, it is relentless, and it is exacting. And many people get caught up in its jaws. And so I wanted to just start my presentation with a story, sharing a little bit about myself and some of the wonderful people that I'm able to work with and support in my work. So I myself am an immigrant. I lived many years as an undocumented immigrant, and so I know what it is like to live in the shadows. And in my particular story, I was very protected by my mother, who was also undocumented, who kept this from me because she knew how bad the system was. And I never really had a full understanding because in many ways, through her faith, through luck, through circumstances of the time, was able to stay protected. And as I have come into this work and I've had the opportunity to work with people like Anthony and many others who come through our Stratford Detention Center, which Maggie will touch upon right after me in our visitation program, is that I got to see firsthand what the system can do and how it can chew people up. And so the reason why our system does that is because of where we invest our funds, where we invest our money. Instead of creating humane processes for people to be able to make their case, whether they're coming as a student or as a worker or whatever the reasons may be. Instead, we have a very punitive system that invests heavily in the mechanisms of detention and deportation, creating immense barriers for people who are seeking asylum, an international right, creating lesser opportunities for people to do that, making our system very punitive and making it very difficult to receive legal status in this country. And so as a result, we have 11 million undocumented people in the United States who live in that darkness and they live in that fear, knowing or guessing at how bad the system will be and it is that bad. I've seen firsthand the ways that we as a system, what that looks like on the ground, the fact that we not only through multiple administrations have created policies that separate families, that force people to stay in what we are calling an open air detention center between the walls that are being built on the southern border. Investments in creating the wall, which has had an incredibly painful and harmful impact on not only the communities of people there, but on the environment. And additional policies that create, when there are possibilities for relief, creating only temporary relief and not the permanent solutions that would truly solve this problem and enable people to be able to rectify their status and be able to take care of themselves and take care of their families. And so because the system is so bureaucratic, is so loaded over, in addition to 11 million people undocumented, we also have an immigration court system that is 1 million cases backlogged, and immigrants do not have the right to legal counsel. And so there is multiple ways in which people are set up to fail within the system. And so I believe that's, oh yes, I wanted to touch on too, in the ways that we see that in our New Hampshire context. And I'll finish with that and then move it over to Maggie. So we see in our policies that our policies are driven by these stories of the other, of immigrants as an invading force or an unwanted presence in our communities, as danger, as bringers of drugs and all sorts of things that we've heard historically in this country, in our history as a nation, and the ways that we treat people coming to our shores, depending on where they're coming from or what they look like. And so there is an ongoing narrative that influences our policy. And we're also seeing that in New Hampshire as well. That New Hampshire, we as well are a border state, bordering Canada for 58 miles along our North Country border. And what we're seeing is that there's been an increased narrative and push, despite the complete lack of data, of increasing the enforcement at our northern border. And that what we have, although we do not have a border wall, we certainly have a technological border. And so we see these policies being enacted in real time, and then the impact that that has on communities and on people, and that what we're truly aiming to change and needing to do is pushing our immigration system to be one that truly upholds the humanity of all. And so I'll turn it over to Maggie to share about our visitation program here at the Stratford County Jail.
Thank you so much, Grace. I hope I've got a good signal. Greetings from Route 84 in Hartford, Connecticut. I've been looking forward to this opportunity to be with you, and I had no idea that when the day came, I'd be driving back to New Hampshire from New Jersey. So I apologize for not being on camera, but I'm glad that technology allows me to still be a part of the conversation. And when I look at how many wonderful folks are in the participants list, I'm extra glad to be here. And I'm just passing an exit for Asylum Street, which is kind of nice little coincidence. I'm on Route 84. So just a few thoughts about detention. Just to put it in a national context, we have a pretty significant network nationwide of immigration detention centers, the largest share of which are owned by private prison companies who, during a period of time when we were wising up to the harmful and costly impacts of mass incarceration in the criminal legal system, realized that with some very targeted lobbying on our immigration laws that we could create a substantial new target population for incarceration and call it immigration detention. But there's also a share of the national network of detention centers that are county jails, such as what we have at the Stratford County Jail in Dover, and I'll talk a little bit about them in just a moment. But in this case, it's money from the Department of Homeland Security that ends up becoming a significant stream of revenue for vital county services, sheriff's departments, nursing homes, etc. So there's lots of ways in which we've come to rely on the revenue from these contracts for immigration detention. I want to mention that the same companies, the same for-profit companies that run immigration prisons are also now seeing increasing profits in the area of immigration surveillance with ankle monitors, surveillance phones, and other kinds of systems. And we actually have policies within our federal budget which mandate that we be funding a certain number, tens of thousands of immigration detention beds on an annual basis. And while some immigration policies vary depending on which political party is in office, it is true that we have been investing billions of dollars in immigration detention, regardless of whether Democrats or Republicans are president. So there really is a shared responsibility for detention being such a significant cornerstone of our national immigration policy. And it's worth mentioning that it also becomes an immigration policy that we export to other countries. We pressure Mexico and Guatemala to detain migrants, to stop them before they get to the US border. So we're externalizing our policies of incarceration of immigrants to other countries as well. So we're going to see, when I'm done speaking, we're going to see a very powerful short film about the terrible toll that immigration detention takes on the mental health of migrants in custody. It is a cruel response to a largely non-criminal situation. Most immigration violations are not criminal violations, they are civil, and immigrants are being held, awaited while they're being processed for removal, or being held while they're moving through their immigration court process. Unlike in the criminal legal system, immigrants in ICE custody are not guaranteed access to legal counsel. They can have an attorney if they can afford one, or if they can access a very limited supply of pro bono attorneys. But as a result, immigrants are navigating an expedited removal process. Well, I shouldn't use that phrase because that has a specific legal meaning, but they are navigating a rapidly moving court process aimed at their removal, most of the time, at least 85%, without benefit of legal representation. So there's some significant due process concerns. Since 2014, the American Friends Service Committee and the New Hampshire Conference of the UCC have been co-hosting the New Hampshire Immigrant Visitation Program at the Stratford County Jail. Together with some additional community leaders, including immigrant leaders, we created this weekly visitation program because we were learning from immigrant families beyond New Hampshire that their loved ones were incarcerated at Stratford, and they wanted an ability to reach out to them, to support them, to communicate with them. And so we reached out to the jail administration, to the superintendent, as well as to the ICE regional office, and began the processes of getting approval to be an immigration program. And an immigrant visitation program. And in February of this coming year, February of 2024, it will be 10 years of what has really been a magnificent partnership with the Stratford County Jail. We have built a lot of trust of each other over the years, and staff from the superintendent down to the social workers and the medical staff and other corrections officers are consistently urging us to visit someone that is in particular need, or someone who's expressing either emotional or mental health or concerns about their legal situation. And so every week our team of volunteers are in the facility, and the jail allows us to visit any unit that has ICE detainees. So we're really grateful for that arrangement. It is a rare find nationally for an immigrant visitation program to have such a cooperative arrangement with the detention center. So we're very grateful for that. We see, so right now there's a contract with Stratford County and ICE for, I think it's still up to 100 beds. Right now the census at the facility is for between 75 and 80 people. It took a significant dip during COVID, but those numbers have been holding pretty steady at 75 to 80 for the last year or so. And we see people from all over the world, from every geographic region of the world, people who have just arrived within the last couple of weeks as asylum seekers, people who came 30 years ago through the refugee resettlement program, and then because of contact with the criminal legal system, ended up having their status removed, and so now they're vulnerable to deportation. We see international students who have lost their access to a student visa for various reasons. We see people who came as children with their parents. So it's quite a variety of story. the Stratford County Jail is the only ICE detention center in northern New England. There are 2 other detention centers in New England, in the Wyatt facility in Rhode Island, and then the Plymouth County facility in Massachusetts, which, by the way, has recently seen a spike from 100 ICE detainees to recently it just leapt up to 240. So that's kind of an alarming trend to see.
I could see people enjoying that.
So they just see, I just made a few little notes. So I guess the last thing I just want to mention is the value of the visitation that our volunteers do. And we've got a couple of current and former volunteers on this call who have just made such a beautiful offering of their listening ears and their compassion and their willingness to research answers to questions and to connect people with information that they need. Our orientation is to provide emotional and mental support to help connect people to the resources that they need to take the steps that they want to take in their immigration cases, to connect with loved ones. And because of the New Hampshire Conference UCC's commitment to this detention work, the Immigrant and Refugee Support Group has formed a number of other supportive ministries, the Benevolent Assistance, the Funds for Phone and Commissary, the Bond Fund, that has really made quite an impressive array of services for detained as well as formerly detained individuals. We are in real need of additional volunteers, and hopefully someone can put the link for our visitation volunteer application into the chat. It is beautiful work. It is an opportunity to make a meaningful connection with many people who are in deep isolation and anxiety and fear, and to offer love and compassion and solidarity and comfort. So I welcome you to consider that role. And I want to thank everyone who works together as we continue to learn and grow. How do we accompany, how do we provide compassion and solidarity right here where we are in New Hampshire? So thank you.
So Don, this is Gail Kinney. I'll introduce myself and then just say a word about the film. But first of all, I want to thank both Grayson and Maggie for the partnership we have with the American Friends Service Committee is really special in New Hampshire, and it is instrumental, and it is so rewarding. And we do this work together, and it's wonderful. So Grace and Maggie both touched on the sort of the cruelty of the ICE detention. So ICE is Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Immigrant and Customs Enforcement, an arm of Homeland Security that we call ICE. And so we have a video, a group of people who were detained by ICE and really traumatized by that have come together and put together a 12-minute video called Caged Dreams, the mental health impact of immigration detention. And we wanted to share that with you to again, put an exclamation point on what Grace and Maggie have already talked about. This detention is being done in our name with our tax dollars. And so it's up to us to try to do something to make amends for that. So Thaddeus, the film.
My name is Johannes Favi. I was detained in Kankakee for 10 months, 2 weeks. One night, I had a dream that my child was crying. I picked up my child and put her on my chest just to make her feel better. And I woke up to realize that I was behind bar and I was having a fake dream.
My name is Felipe Diosdado, and when I was on detention, I was just dreaming to be out. There was just a little window on the ceiling that we can see the light coming through. And I see the moon on the month once. So I was dreaming to be out and try to be out with my family.
Yo soy Beatriz Batres. Era como una situación difícil en el sentido de que estando en la detención a las 2 de la mañana llegaban a hacer una cuenta para ver si alguien se había escapado y posteriormente media hora o una hora llegaban y sacaban a las familias en las madrugadas. O sea, te acostabas, pero no sabías si te iba a tocar a ti irte deportado sin derecho a ir a un juez. Entonces era en medio de toda esa angustia de que no sabes si iba a ser yo la próxima que iba a salir.
It made me feel desperate, not being able to hold my child, to see that my human rights were taken away and I could be in contact with my children anymore.
It was really painful being in there and don't be able to hug my kids or kiss them.
Mis miedos y la vida fuera de la detención ha sido difícil.
Now, an NPR investigation stretching over more than 3 years has revealed a massive trove of government records. They show that the government's own experts found barbaric treatment, negligent medical and mental health care, racist abuse, and what one expert called astonishing failures inside these detention facilities.
At least 19 migrant women held at Irwin County Immigration Detention Facility in Georgia have come forward with claims of medical abuse against a doctor.
New images of tent cities, some are likening them to internment camps.
As a group, immigration detainees are especially vulnerable to sexual abuse and its effect while detained due to social, cultural, language isolation.
In this Arizona facility, a 16-year-old boy complaining about water tasting like chlorine. Agents took the mats out of their cell in retaliation.
A Cuban seeking asylum in the U.S. who had been in ICE custody in Louisiana for months died by an apparent suicide. Royland Hernandez-Diaz had been on a hunger strike and had claimed abuse in prison.
Immigration detention can have long-lasting impact on an individual who is detained, but also family members. The conditions and the detention centers, in the uncertainty about the future and what's happening next, can cause mental health conditions such as PTSD and also anxiety and depression and many other conditions. A recent study in 2019 from the American Immigration Council showed that up to 84% of people who are detained experience at least one type of mental health disorders and conditions. And the longer they are detained, the more chances they have of experiencing stress, anxiety, and even suicidal thoughts and behaviors.
Driving on a road was a challenge right after detention. Hearing sirens will make you panic, and even if you don't commit a crime. So I have to readapt to society.
What Johanna's experience is the association of a traumatic event with a specific sound or smell. This happens often when our body connects the traumatic experience that happened with something in the environment, and that's something that later on will trigger those same fears and feelings, making his body think that he's in danger again.
My kids were 8 and 11, and the most particular thing is when they send me letters and they send me drawings, and some of them still I didn't read them yet. I can't read them. I just still close. I don't know what they told me on some of them because it was really painful to read.
What Felipe might have been experienced is that he knew that those letters had some strong feelings from his child. Even if it was a loving and caring letter, it was a reminder that his family was in distress and emotional distress. And now that he is released from detention, the fear of opening the letter and reading can bring those flashbacks of him being incarcerated, being detained, and not being able to be with their family. So it's very common for people who experience traumatic events like incarceration that they want to completely dissociate and separate from the experience.
A diario el recordar que tengo una orden de deportación, que el sistema no es justo. En un principio era como tener miedo hasta de que un policía te viera. Y el hecho de que antes de mi corte yo pude ver el diagnóstico, y es un diagnóstico de estrés postraumático, que en realidad yo no pensé que lo tuviera de ese tipo.
What Beatriz is experiencing is a high level of stress related to an event that happened years ago that still carries on and continues years after her time in detention. Unfortunately, the experiences of Johannes, Felipe, and Beatriz are not isolated events and isolated cases. This is the common experience of individuals who go through immigration detention and immigration process. Folks that have been released from immigration detention should seek mental health services right away to increase their chances of recovery.
Welcome.
Hola. Y en esta oportunidad estoy frente a ustedes para compartir el hecho de todo lo que sucede dentro de Farmville y cómo afecta a nuestras comunidades. Con seguridad puedo decirles que soy la voz de miles de personas, de miles de familias, de mujeres, madres que están enfrentando esta situación. Creo que si yo no hubiese llegado a las terapias, no sé en realidad cómo estuviera hoy. Siento que que la comunidad inmigrante no tiene acceso a la salud emocional nos hace desconocer tanto de factores emocionales que no nos permiten podernos desarrollar.
The need for resources available for individuals who have been detained and released from immigration is extremely important.
After experiencing immigration detention, the trauma, it's okay to look for help.
After being on detention and go through all this by yourself or with your family, it's okay to look for help, professional help, and to heal.
Y está bien buscar ayuda, siempre que se necesite. Está bien decir, quiero estar mejor, y para estar mejor a veces hay que cuidarnos a nosotros para poder cuidar a los demás.
What makes me hopeful is that many others like me standing against an unfair system. I hope our children don't have to experience this trauma, and that the children also one day don't go through the same.
When I'm thinking of the future, what made me hopeful is the community and the support, the organizations, and how strong we can be if we are together.
Cuando pienso en el futuro, algo que me trae esperanza es el hecho de ver a más gente de comunidad que pierde el miedo a hablar. O sea, me da esperanza el hecho de que la gente pueda entender que podemos hacer cosas cuando nos unimos.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Thaddeus, for showing us that video. So I am Gail Kinney. I am the Worker Justice Minister with the Meriden Congregational Church, and I'm also part of the, I'm really honored to be part of the Immigrant and Refugee Support Group of the United Church of Christ here in New Hampshire. So the trauma of detention is likely something that we simply cannot fully understand unless we have actually been through it. And so the question for us, the small role that we can play here in New Hampshire is what is our role to be in accompaniment with, to be in partnership with the folks who experience ICE detention. And I do want to say that even though Maggie mentioned that the superintendent of the county jail in Dover that has the ICE detention contract is a decent gentleman who really wants the visitation program to work and to be a part of what they do, but it's still ICE detention. And many of the people who are in Dover don't just start out in Dover. If they cross the border, particularly the southern border, they may get bounced from one ICE detention facility to another before they end up in Dover, full of the trauma that has been visited on them by detention systems. So what is the role of the UCC and our allies in other faith communities and in the community at large? And what is it that we are doing and that we can and should be doing, particularly for people who have suffered through ICE detention? And much of what we're doing on the ground with our Immigrant Bond and Support Fund, which is a very unique fund that the UCC in New Hampshire has created to assist people primarily in ICE detention. What are the things that we are doing, that we can do and we should be doing? And all of that work is really driven by the ICE detention system. But first of all, overall, the Immigrant and Refugee Support Group, we need to be, part of our role is to do consciousness raising, to just let other people within our communities and within our churches understand what this system is and how inhumane it is, and that we are called in whatever way we can to do something about it. We are also called to be advocates. in terms of public policy and holding our elected officials, particularly at the federal level, accountable if they are not doing anything to make the system more humane. And then we really need to maintain and enhance our immigrant bond and support fund. And so I'm going to talk just a tiny bit about what that fund does. So we began to realize that when we learned about through the visitation program that there were people in detention in Dover who had an opportunity to pay a bond and actually get out of ICE detention. Not everyone has that opportunity. It depends on the immigration court system. If the system determines that they actually have a credible fear of going back to their country, if their lives are in danger, then they can go through the immigration court system, which is not easy, and press their case for asylum. And but the best way you can press your case and be effective with your case is if you're not in ICE detention, if you get bonded out. Bonds can be anywhere from about, we have $1,500 to $10,000 or more. So this fund was initially created so that we could pay bonds for people who had an opportunity to get out of ICE detention. And again, we can only do that through the generosity of people who continue to support the fund so that we can pay the bonds. We don't have much advance notice. We learn sometimes just a couple days in advance or a week in advance, so-and-so has an opportunity to get out of ICE detention, but they're demanding $5,000 or $7,500 in order to get this person out. But while people are in ICE detention, sometime for many, many, many months, in order to purchase anything that's not part of what they get in jail, the 3 meals a day, et cetera, is they can buy things at the commissary, including buying phone calls. But they can buy extra food if they're hungry. They can buy a blanket or a piece of clothing if they're cold in their cell. And many of the cells, including in Stratford, are very cold. They can buy personal care products, toothbrush, toothpaste, a comb or shampoo that works for them. Those are the kinds of things they get through commissary. And in order to just make their lives just a tiny bit more livable, people who go in with the visitation program will let us know that who needs commissary support in the coming weeks. And then part of what our fund does, our special fund does, is we will make payments. We'll put money onto that individual person who's detained, their commissary account. What we do is we make a deposit on their commissary account. We can do it through credit cards. We can do it through postal money orders. We have found that postal money orders, for the most part in Stratford County, are the cheapest. And we have 2 people who work specifically on, our own, 3 people, BJ and Dick Lates and Charlotte Ramsey, shout out to them, who work on just doing those commissary deposits. So we created our fund 5 years ago. We celebrated our 5th year anniversary in July. We have made 819 commissary deposits of $25 each. It costs us $27 to make that deposit, $2 for the postal money order for somebody to be able to get $25. And we, again, Don will talk about this, but $27, practically everybody can afford over time to make a $27 donation. And that will make the life of somebody in ICE detention immeasurably different or better for a month. And they also know somebody on the outside cares about them, somebody they'll never meet. So bonds, the commissary payments, legal fees, again, as was mentioned, nobody has a right to an attorney who's in ICE detention. And so there are some pro bono attorneys who do this wonderful work, but there are also attorneys who are immigrant law specialists who will do this work for low cost. And so part of what our bond and support fund does is if we can find somebody who needs legal fees to really press a very winnable asylum case, we will try to help make legal payments or work with an attorney to get some low-cost legal services for those individuals. And then finally, when people are out of ICE detention, we realize that they get out, they have to have a place to live. They have to show that they have a place to live before they can get out of ICE detention. So they have to show that they have a roof over their head. But here's part of the catch-22 of what's so inhumane about this system. People get out, they're not allowed to work until they get work authorization from one of the arms of Homeland Security. And sometimes it can take 1.5 years to 2 years before somebody gets a work authorization. And if they don't have a work authorization and they're forced to work under the table and they're caught doing that, then that's a criminal violation, and they may end up, just advancing the reason to deport them. And so they're in this catch-22. So they count on the kindness of other people for a roof over their head, for their meals, their food, and other kinds of things. And so when people are out of ICE detention and waiting for their work authorizations, we have been able to provide $100 a month in what we call temporary financial assistance. And that covers a cell phone for somebody, which is really a lifeline for everybody. And then it may cover also other things if they need to buy something for themselves, a piece of clothing or some more personal care products. They don't have to beg for the money. They can use the $100 that they get from this special fund. So far, since our fund began again 5 years ago, we have provided temporary financial assistance, sometimes for as long as 2 years before somebody gets work authorization. So $100 per month to 32 individuals. We have bonded out 20 people so far since our fund began, and we have been able to provide legal fees for 23 people. And so we have touched so many lives. And I just really quickly, I want to talk about one person who wanted to be with us tonight. Ben was somebody that was one of the first people we bonded out. His bond was $10,000. We have since gotten his bond back. We get bonds back after people have gone through the full legal process. And Ben is a story that he had to escape. He was a professional in his African country, but he had to escape for his life because of the civil strife, civil war, where he lived, and had to, again, run just the way we heard at the beginning. He had to run for his life and to leave his family, his large family behind. He came, was bounced around, ended up in Dover. We were able to bond him out. He received temporary financial assistance from us till he got his work authorization. And then he worked sometimes 16, 20 hours a day. And he worked and worked and worked, and he saved and saved and saved. And while he was, when he initially got out, he went and lived at the Unitarian Church in Manchester that gave him a roof over his head and provided him with a full support system. And now Ben has been able to enroll in graduate school. Ben has saved enough money so that he was able to purchase a house in Manchester, and now he is in what he hopes are the final stages of bringing his large family to New Hampshire as well. And so that is full circle, but he benefited from the commissary, the bond, the support system, the temporary financial assistance, and there are many, many people beyond that who have benefited from our work as well. All of you can play a role in one of these things in supporting the fund and supporting others. So I just want to ask, I'm looking for one of our immigrants who may or may not be on this call. I don't
think he is.
Okay, the only one I saw was IMAC owner. I wasn't sure if perhaps that was him, but maybe not. Okay, so just the final thing that I want to say is that there's the person that we'd hoped to have with us tonight, but probably had technical issues with getting on Zoom, was somebody, again, who we helped with legal support to get out of ICE detention and provided temporary financial assistance, commissary while he was in jail, that Don initially visited as part of the visitation program. And then I got to know him because I was the person who was sending him the $100 a month in temporary financial assistance. And I will say that meeting him and exchanging text messages with him and communication with him on a every couple of weeks basis has enriched my life so much. It is a gift to me. We've been supporting and accompanying this individual, but I feel that it is a gift to me to get to know him and to know his story and know his experience. And anybody who gets involved in this, I think, will probably end up with a similar experience. So take it away, Don.
I want to close. We are running out of time. I want to close with 4 specific ways that each of us individually or as part of our home churches or collectively, we can contribute to this mission of the New Hampshire Conference. There are ways large and there are ways small. There are opportunities that can meet your time budget or your wallet. The first way on our list is that you can join the Immigrant and Refugee Support Group. We are an ecumenical group. We would welcome your participation. We would welcome your ideas about how we can better accompany immigrants, and we would welcome your energy and enthusiasm for this mission. If you would like to participate in the IRSG, please reach out to one of us. Secondly, we would love to make a presentation to your church group or a civic group. One or more of us would be happy to show up, meet with your mission and action group, meet for a mission moment during Sunday worship, whatever meets the needs of your particular group. We'd be happy to spread the word further. Thirdly, and I think it's already been mentioned, we'd love to have you a volunteer with the New Hampshire Immigrant Visitation Program. This would be a really hands-on commitment to live your faith and serve some of the most vulnerable members of our community. The visitors meet with immigrants in detention. They pray with them if that seems appropriate. Most important, they listen to their stories and they show, their presence shows that somebody cares. The fourth way to contribute is financially, and I think Debbie Levitt has already posted on our the chat a link to contribute. Am I correct, Debbie?
Yes.
Yes, she did.
Yes, I
Okay.
did.
Okay, so there is a
And I
link
also
on there to
put-
contribute.
And Don, I
And-
also put the link to the application for the visitation program as well.
Yep, excellent. Thank you, Debbie.
Yeah.
As Gail mentioned, some of the work of the Immigrant and Refugee Support Group involves thousands of dollars for legal fees or to pay a bond. But as little as $27 will get $25 into the commissary account of one of those immigrants in detention. I can tell you from personal experience, it makes a huge difference to the life of somebody who is in detention. It makes a difference, and the immigrants in detention are very appreciative. I'm going to invite Maggie to share with us if she's been able to monitor any reactions, any questions, or if somebody has a question now, you can go to the reactions icon on the bottom of the screen and click it, and there's an opportunity to raise your hand, and Thaddeus will invite you in.
Thanks, Don. The only thing I notice in the chat that isn't some of the links you just mentioned is that Nancy shared that Sandra Nikencher, whose family benefited from the visitation program, is coming out with an album, one single at a time. And so there's an Instagram link there that people might enjoy. So,
well, just to add to that, Maggie, Sandra and her husband are examples of people who have sought asylum in this country and gone on to thrive. They have three of the cutest children you'll ever see, and they are all doing very well. Thank you for that post, Nancy. Any other questions or comments?
I'll
I don't
just
see,
share that Ben, who was mentioned earlier, I put that in the comment as well, has been hired by the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation to do racial diversity work. It's not a pay raise for him, and he's going to have to continue doing the work he is doing, working with children with autism, but it furthers his goal of his the goal of his master's degree is community development, and the more he is working with the community and the charitable foundation included, the closer he's getting to his goal.
and Nancy, you want to comment on Ben's work ethic?
On his work ethic?
Yeah.
20 hours a day.
Yeah, he works and he works and he works.
Yeah, that's
And
well
saves
put. Very eloquent, Nancy. Thank you.
I just want to say really quickly that thank you for mentioning that new job that he got. He wanted to be with us tonight. He wanted to share some of his story. But he said that this new job that he has working in racial diversity, he said he believes is going to lead him, put him on a path to ultimately his dream career. And he just got the job. And so there was a team meeting with the team getting together for the first time from 4 o'clock today to 8 o'clock today. And he said, I have to choose my new job as much as I would like to be with you. So just let me share that. Thank you, Nancy.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I don't see any other questions or comments. So I'd like to close with two things. First of all, we are undeniably and wholeheartedly a faith-based group. So I'd like to close my part with a reading from Matthew 25. It'll be familiar to all of you. And then our friend Anthony, we have a recording by our friend Anthony of his thank you for his experience with us. This is from Matthew 25, verses 35 through 40. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you? The king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. And I'd ask Thaddeus to play that last recording.
To the IRSG group, I also want to thank God for you all because you are truly an example of what kindness, generosity, and compassion means. I know that my God is a magnificent God, and He continues to show me His magnificence through people like you. You are a gift and a blessing, and I want you to know just how good you have been to me and my family over these past years. I cannot thank you enough for all you have done for me and my family. I don't know where I would be without you. I am grateful to have you all in my life. Your help has been invaluable to me. I thank God every day for blessing my life so much with wonderful people like you. Thank you for guiding me, encouraging me, inspiring me, and for your support, and for always making sure that I am doing okay. You don't know how much that means to me. I will forever be grateful to you and for you. We are shaped by our thoughts. We become what we think. When the mind is pure, joy follows like a shadow that never leaves. May God continue to protect you all, grant you wisdom's fruit, bless you as your intellect continue to grow bright and clear, May you cherish no ill feelings towards anyone so that you all will be able to continue the good work that you have been doing. Shalom.
Thank you very much, everybody who took time this evening to join us. We're very grateful for you being with us this evening and appreciate your support. Thank you very much and good night.